warm and fuzzy hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN family podcast. We've got a great podcast for you. We're going to be joined in segment number 2 by a good friend of mine, Ryan McIntyre, who does such amazing work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. We're going to chat with him about just some of the takeaways that we had from this past season and what is going to be meaning for the offseason, because we are going to be having just so many guys entering into the transfer portal. I do think that we're going to see an even bigger emphasis than before on big men, if they weren't already very much emphasized. And we're going to be chatting with them about if we're going to see teams go a little bit bigger here in the offseason with the success of Arizona, Michigan, what have you, just how big chemistry still means in college basketball. We have seen a few teams like Purdue and St. Louis decide that they're going to be running it back for this upcoming season, so we're going to be chatting about that. And he's based out there in the great state of West Virginia, so we're going to chat a little bit about the Mountaineers for this upcoming season as well. And then in the final segment, I'm going to get you guys a recap of all the news and notes that we saw in college basketball over the last 24 hours. We had quite a few transfer moves that happened on Saturday. And if you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, and I beggeth you, I pleadeth you, please do have these questions, because we've got 200 days remaining in the offseason, so I would love to have some questions to be able to just dive in on. You've got one or two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters the me does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And while I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, we saw this late in the night on Friday. I was able to talk a little bit about it on the podcast yesterday with our good friend Curtis Rogers, but I think it's worth diving into a little bit more. The fact that UC Santa Barbara, they are going to be joining the WCC, and it's very clear that the WCC is going to be picking up a few pieces from the fact that Gonzaga is leaving the conference. Now St. Mary's is going to be really the flag bearer for them, and now for the Big West, man, they're in a little bit of ruin. You lose UC Santa Barbara, you lose a few other schools. I believe that they're picking up Cal Baptist from the WAC, and if you're having a tough time keeping things straight with regards to conference realignment, don't worry. Even someone like myself is having a little bit of a tough time as well. Apparently, West Florida is a Division II school that's going to be joining the Atlantic Sun. So if you're having a little bit of a tough time, I think we all are, because with the new Pac-12, it's going to be very interesting to take a look at all those. And I mean, even some of these websites that track college basketball are getting it wrong at this point. But that said, for the WCC, it's going to be really interesting to see what they're going to be able to do for the upcoming season. I feel like Curtis put it so properly yesterday when he called it pretty much the Big East of the West Coast. And now for the WCC, while you do lose Gonzaga, you still have some nice flag bearer programs. You're still going to be having St. Mary's, Santa Clara out there. Obviously, you lose the two former Pac-12 schools in Washington State and Oregon State. That was for a good time, not a long time, but still, you're going to be probably seeing San Diego put quite a few resources into college basketball. They showed that they were all in with the Steve Lavin move. It didn't work out, but at the very least, they went for it there. They added Seattle in the last offseason, and they were able to be a 20-win team this past year. And for Santa Barbara, they've been a little bit underachieving over the last few seasons, but we know the success that they've had in terms of college basketball. I still go back to the 2021 NCAA tournament. It looked like they were going to be able to pull off a 12-over-5 upset. I think that they were playing against Creighton that season. They had a ball that just did not go down. They had like a 2-foot layup that didn't fall, or else they would have won that game in the NCAA tournament. But still, this is a UC Santa Barbara team that is very much invested in their program. Bringing in someone like an Ada Mahaney last offseason was very big for them. They've brought in guys that have played at the power conference level before, like Colin Smith, Mario Little. These were guys that came in from, I believe, Vanderbilt for Colin Smith, and Mario Little was over at BYU and Utah, respectively. So, I mean, this is a program that's going to stick a lot of resources into it. Most of these teams do not really have any sort of football whatsoever. So, I do think that this is a good move for the WCC. We shall see what realignment is going to be happening moving forward, because as we know, the former WAC, that's now going to be a new conference as well. So, we've got a lot of moving parts there. I'm going to try to be able to keep everything straight with this, but I do think that for the WCC, they've also done a nice job in terms of keeping things, for lack of a better term, very, very regional as well. And that's a big thing that was taken away with the old Pac-12 just being disintegrated, with the California schools heading on over to the Big Ten, having Cal and Stanford heading on over to the ACC, what have you. And obviously Arizona's now out there in the Big 12, but I mean, that's something that you lost. Now you're able to get it back with what is going to be the new version of the Pac-12. Not going to be quite the same as what we had before, but still, that's going to be pretty rock solid. Now you've got the WCC. What is left of the Big West is going to be solid as well. So so still have some nice West Coast action. And I do have to wonder if some of these kids that are out there out west is going to want to go to one of these conferences that's a little bit more regional rather than going to one of these major power schools like a Stanford, like UCLA, USC, because maybe their parents aren't going to be able to see them as much because they're going to be traveling on the road so much, whereas the travel out there in the WCC, the travel out there in the new Pac-12, the Big West, what have you, going to be much, much less strenuous. So I think that was good for them, good on the WCC on that front end. What is also very good, getting Ryan McIntyre on this podcast. He does such amazing work over the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and he joins me next right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Ryan McIntyre aboard. Does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast. So we're looking at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. And I know that he, much like myself, is on to baseball. I do a little bit more pro baseball. He does a little bit more college baseball, but he does a great job on that front as the college experience, which he and Kobe Dant do. And they do an absolutely incredible job looking at everything. I believe they drove into a little bit of Frozen Four action, which my Wisconsin Badgers, they were able to have themselves a nice run there. So always love to see that. And for Ryan, he's got his finger on the pulse of a little bit of everything West Virginia sports, as well as he does the Ryan and Rush show. On that front, you're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at Moneyline_Max, spelled MAC. And Ryan, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Hoops, appreciate it, man. I know we're in the off season. Hopefully this goes quickly because we need college hoops back in our life.
Oh, we certainly do. November cannot get here soon enough. And before we take a look at what we're going to be getting this offseason, just what were some of your takeaways from this past season? Because the adage is always that guard play wins in March and everything like that. But I just take a look at the teams that made it deep in the NCAA tournament, and it felt like all those teams had better forward play rather than guard play.
I think it's kind of shifted a little bit. I think more teams are valuing positional size and defensive versatility where you can switch a bunch of stuff to counter all this ball screen stuff. Michigan was so good defensively. Arizona was so good defensively. Both those teams were huge too. Duke the last couple of years. It's funny. Like it used to be throw the ball inside and play inside out. Then it was shoot a bunch of threes during the Steph Curry era with the Warriors. Now I think it's more get long, get athletic on the defense, on the perimeter. I think you can counter a bunch of his offensive principles.
Yep, and it's going to be really interesting to take a look at that moving forward. And do you think that might be actually contributing to why we've seen fewer of these mid-majors be able to pull off upsets? Because I feel like the biggest thing for mid-majors is it's hard for them to be able to find good 7-footers, to be able to find good size. And I think that the power conference teams are realizing that, and I can go back to really the history of basketball, and size typically wins out. I feel like too many teams went away from that, and now they're getting back to it.
I think a lot of people think have positional size on the interior, but I think having big guards too helps. Having guys 6'5", 6'6" on the perimeter that if you want to switch something where he can guard a big, and then you have a big guard and a guard. So being big 1 through 5 helps a lot. And I think a lot of teams are diving more into that. And honestly, we're seeing that more in the NBA too. I know this isn't an NBA podcast, but I think positional size is definitely a strong emphasis here.
Yep, absolutely. As we do have our good friend Ryan McIntyre does such amazing work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And how much do you think that these big men are going to command with regards to the, shall we say, dash for cash this offseason, as I like to call it, because a lot of guys are going to be getting paid, and we've noticed these big men like Kofi Coburn, Drew Timme in the past all get paid, Hunter Dickinson as well, and I feel like the asking price is just going up and up on these guys.
Honestly, I'm hoping that we see more and more teams that don't want to pay that premium price where you spread the wealth out. Go 9, 10 deep, wear you down with size, physicality, versatility. I think it's a more efficient way of kind of managing your budget and your payroll to a certain degree.
Oh, yes, we saw that with Washington a few years ago where they paid Great Osobor, and then they paid Great Osobor, and then they paid Great Osobor some more, and they had absolutely nothing around him. So that was always good, clean family fun right there. And, I mean, Kansas State this past year, they paid P.J. Haggerty, and then they paid P.J. Haggerty some more. And apparently they also paid for a Jerome Tang buyout as well. So that was good use of money right there. But we'll see what we get moving forward. And just how do you try to sift through everything that we're going to be getting in the offseason? Because I think that at this point it's a defeatist effort if you try to gauge everyone that's in the transfer portal. Because I've said this on the podcast the last few seasons. It's not news when a guy enters into the transfer portal. It's news when a guy returns to school. And I think the only reaction you should have is when a guy signs with a new team, not when he actually enters, because I feel like the crystal ball things and everything like that, they just go way too far on what is something that is just so hard to be able to keep track of.
Honestly, Greg, I tune it out when people enter the transfer portal. It's like, oh, he left. Honestly, it's more surprising if you don't hit the portal.
Yeah,
I wish we would get some reports. You know, Alex Caravan did not hit the portal. We should celebrate guys like that. And I think that's like back to the championship game. What was so great about UConn culture. It's refreshing to see teams like that, guys that buy into the program, the coach that recruited them. I know it's foreign now, but every now and then it is refreshing to see the old way college basketball work.
Exactly. And how big do you think that is? Because we actually have seen a few of those reports. Michigan announced that they were going to be bringing back quite a few guys. I know that they're bringing back Elliot Cadu. We know that Purdue, aside from Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and the reason why they're not returning is not because they're hitting the portal. It's because, well, they're just flat out of eligibility. But Purdue announced that they're bringing back so many guys. St. Louis, pretty much everyone, not named Ravi Avila because he's out of eligibility, going to be returning as well. How much do you want to highlight those teams? Because those teams, as I like to call it, they're going to be a little bit out of sight, out of mind, but the fact that they put out just the releases that they did over the last few days, saying that they're going to be bringing back these guys, that has me very bullish on them for the upcoming season.
100%. I think retention is so off the charts now in this day and age. Michigan, I know, portaled it up, and so did Arizona. But you see teams like UConn that build it the right way, the old way, bring back guys. And I'm hoping that maybe we get a renaissance of mid-majors if we can see some retention. Now, finally getting away from the COVID year. The only thing is, back to what we were talking about in the previous segment, is the positional size, I think, definitely really hurts the mid-majors.
Yep, it certainly does, and I do think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward, and I do think that it is all about being able to have a good blend. Like, I felt like Purdue actually did a really good job last offseason, bringing back so many guys and then adding those one or two pieces in Oscar Clough. Problem is, Matt Painter just has not been able to coach a lot of defense, so he's going to need to work on that. But I love the way that they build things. And how much do you take a look at some of these teams that maybe they're a little bit too stubborn? Because I highlighted this team a few days ago, and I will again. A team like a Marquette, you respect the fact that they try to be able to keep some camaraderie, but Earth to Shaka Smart, you can sign a guy or two in the transfer portal as well.
And Greg, it's kind of like the pro model. You can retain your whole team, pay the guys that are coming back, but you can also dip your toes into, hey, maybe we need a rim protector. Hey, maybe we need a guy that can make shots on the outside. We can go out and pay a specific guy for a specific need. So hopefully Shaka can get that thing done, because I do like Shaka. Him and Tom Izzo definitely have been anti-portal as much as anybody.
And even Tom Izzo has signed a few guys in the portal. I'm not going to say that he's been the Mona Lisa Vito of signing guys in the transfer portal, but at the very least, he's gotten it through his skull that you need to sign a few guys, whereas Marquette signed one guy in the transfer portal. That'd be Tyler Kolek. Worked out amazingly, and they just decided from there, hey, even though this worked out, we're not going to do it anymore, which I don't know what's happening there. So we shall see what happens on that front, as we do have Ryan McIntyre. Does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, and mentioned it at the top, the fact that you do such a great job taking a look at West Virginia athletics. And for West Virginia, they closed the year on a high note. They were able to do a great job in terms of the Crown Championship, making it all the way to the final there. And obviously, it's going to be a little bit of a new look roster, but how much do you take a look at some of those teams that they scratch and claw their way through the Crown, the NIT, to be able to build upward momentum because even though West Virginia is going to lose quite a few guys, I do think that they're going to be able to retain a few guys. And additionally, just that experience that they had late in the season playing into late March, in their case, actually early April as well, I think is really going to be able to benefit them moving forward.
Greg, automatically we're going to start 20-0. That's because that's what Nebraska did this year. I was happy for those guys. Well documented. I live in Morgantown. I'm a well outspoken advocate of the Mountaineers and my time there. So I think Hodge is building it the right way. I think those guys have a lot of good things going in their direction. I think year 2 is going to be fun. I think year 2 has a chance to be a really good year, and they can build off their culture. And the culture that he's trying to establish fits the identity of the state and what Hugs laid down for so long. So I got big expectations for year 2 of the Ross Hodge era in Morgantown.
Yep, I do as well. And how do you take a look at the way that West Virginia is going to be able to build things in the offseason? Because with Hodge, it's very clear. He brought his North Texas style with him to West Virginia. They were one of the slower teams in all of college basketball, built very much on good, rock-solid defense. Offense left a little bit of something to be desired, and I feel like he's really been able to put his, shall we say, imprint on this program already.
Exactly. Their identity is not a secret. They want to guard, they want to rebound, they want to out-tough you, and that's what wins at West Virginia. So ultimately, you got to get a couple shot makers. I thought Hunter Huff did a great job filling that void this past year. I know at times he's a little bit limited just being 5'8", but I think they upgrade their roster here, but keep their culture, and that's why I have high expectations for the Mountaineers.
And just in terms of high expectations in general, I take a look at the entire middle of the Big 12, and I feel like good moves are being made. I remember you joined me a few weeks ago. We were both very bullish on the fact that Cincinnati, they made the offseason moves that they did. I feel like Arizona State, the fact that they are bringing in Randy Bennett, that is going to be absolutely massive for them. And how do you take a look at the middle of this conference? Because I feel like the coaching with Hodge over at West Virginia, bringing in Jared Calhoun for Cincinnati, Randy Bennett over at Arizona State, I feel like we're still going to have the top teams. Like Kansas is still going to be there, Houston's still going to be there, Arizona, what have you, but I feel like the middle of the conference, even though it was solid this last year, I think it might be even better this upcoming season.
I agree, Greg, which is hard to believe. And you elevate with a guy like Randy Bennett. Arizona State all of a sudden is not going to be a joke of a program now. You know they're going to compete, they're going to guard, they're going to have an identity. So I'm looking forward to that era of basketball. And I think a couple of these year 2 guys, I think could take a step. We already mentioned with Hodge, maybe the Utes get going, and Steve Lutz at Oklahoma State. I think that they took a step this year, so really excited for the Big 12. I think a lot of really good programs here, and K-State's a new era.
Oh, yes, Casey Alexander coming in, and he's already signed a few guys in the transfer portal as well. I think that that's going to be able to help them out moving forward as Ryan McIntyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And I believe we have yet to talk to you about the fact that Mike Malone, he is now the new coach over at North Carolina. Obviously, that was the, I would say, biggest note of the offseason thus far. And how do you take a look at that North Carolina team? Because you know that they're going to stick in the money, they're going to stick in the resources, and Mike Malone, there's no question that he knows basketball. He's won an NBA title and helped build Nikola Jokic into what he is, but at the same time, you know as well as I do, the college game is just so different from the professional game, and I think that this is just going to be such a fascinating case study because I can see a world where this actually works out really well, but we have seen Bill Belichick over in the same exact city not necessarily have the success that people were hoping for as well.
Hit the nail on the head, Greg. They had a Super Bowl champion, and now they have an NBA champion. So year 1 was not good for Belichick. I think it's going to be a similar thing where it's going to take a year. It's a different game, different brand of basketball, different scouting, playing Duke, playing Clemson, NC State. You go down the list in the ACC. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. I think Mike Malone's a good ball coach, but I think it will take time.
Yep, I think so as well. I do think that that is going to be really interesting. And just when you take a look all around college basketball, we highlighted some of the coaching moves made in the Big 12. And I really feel like every single one of those Big 12 teams, they nailed it with their coaching moves. But are there a few other ones that you take a look at and you're just feeling bullish about them in general? And you feel like maybe they're not going to be like competing for like a Sweet 16 or an Elite 8 or anything like that. But you just feel like the program got better with their offseason moves thus far.
It's still early, so it's hard to really gauge. I don't know if I have an exact program, but obviously I've been outspoken. I thought the Cincinnati hire of Jared Calhoun was phenomenal. Bring back a Hugs guy. I think Cincinnati will really get their program going back in the right direction and get back to their roots. So it's going to be great to have Cincinnati basketball be really good again.
Yep, I think so as well. And it's going to be a great off season. Ryan, I know that you and Kobe are going to do a great job of rounding it all up, but additionally, you're going to be able to keep us all entertained with what we're going to be getting here in baseball the next few months, all the way to the road to Omaha. So that's going to be great. You guys do a little bit of everything. And before we get to college basketball, I know that you guys are going to do a great job on the college football front as well. So love to give people and know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Absolutely, Greg. Yeah, unfortunately, we won't talk games for a while in college hoops, but college baseball right around the corner, going on right now, college football right around the corner. We're at the college experience. I'm at Moneyline_Mac. And Greg, it was great seeing you in Vegas and look forward to getting up again whenever I'm back in the area.
Absolutely. Now all I need is to be able to find some more beers from West Virginia to be able to pay homage to you out here in lovely Las Vegas. But Ryan, he does such an amazing job looking at so much in terms of the college sports landscape, not just college basketball, but football, hockey, baseball, you name it. He does it every single time he joins me on such great insight. So big thanks to Ryan for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming up next, we did have some decisions made in college basketball on Saturday. We'll give you guys a roundup of those transfer decisions on the flip side. Back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peters, and now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always a pleasure to be joined by our good friend Ryan McIntyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. He did so once again today, so a big thanks to Ryan for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you a recap of the news and notes that we saw in college basketball over the last 24 hours. Blake Harper was such a instrumental player when it came to him being over at Howard 2 years ago as a freshman. He was able to put in there 19.5 points per game, shot 40% from three. This last year at Creighton was a part-time starter, 7.5 points per game. He was shooting about 36.5% from three, but he has decided that he is going to be signing with VCU. This is a good gift for them. I believe that Nick Lewis is already signed back on for them. Phil Martelli Jr. is going to be going into season number 2, and this is a guy that was based out there in the DC area to begin his life, and that's where Howard is located. 6'5", little bit of a combo player. VCU looks like they are sticking all their chips in the basket of being able to have a good basketball program for both this year and moving forward. They've been consistently one of the best, shall we say, non-power conference teams in all of college basketball. Great gift for them that really fits a Martelli Jr. style, so I like that one. Taj Savetsky, he was playing over at Incarnate Word this last season. He's heading back to the Midwest. He was over at Cleveland State 2 seasons ago. Last year at Incarnate Word, very rock-solid piece, 17 points, 4 assists. Now, Incarnate Word was not a great defensive team, but I knew he was shooting 37% from three. He was able to help generate a steal per game. He is going to be heading on over to Akron. As we know with Akron, they do lose John Gross in the offseason, so that's going to be hurting them quite a bit. But that said, I do think that they're doing a nice job in terms of being able to rebuild everything. Dustin Ford, who was the associate head coach, he's going to try to maintain as much of the roster as humanly possible. Have to figure that they're going to be losing quite a few guys via the transfer portal, but this is a good place to be able to start. Savetsky, I think, could go in there right away, have himself a nice impact, so that is going to be big for them. Youngstown State, they're getting someone from Oklahoma, Jeff Nwoko, hopefully I said that correct. He was over at Oklahoma last year, just a guy that was unable to really get out there on the floor for them. He saw action in 24 games, was averaging about 3 points, 2.5 rebounds per game, not a great three-point shooter, and a guy that was from the great state of Oklahoma. He has decided, though, that he's going to go to Youngstown State. Youngstown State has performed a little bit more of a defensive identity over the last few seasons, a team that shot it relatively well from three, so perhaps he's able to show a little bit more with his three-point shooting than we saw 8 seasons ago under Ethan Faulkner, but we have seen Youngstown State take quite a few of these transfers, really turn them into nice go-to scorers, so I do think that that's one that you just trust in the coach there for him to be able to figure it out, and I do think that he's going to be able to do so. Xavier, another nice pickup. Over the last few days, they picked up Michael Nwoko, double-figure scorer over at LSU, Ruben Dominguez, who was a nice scorer over at Texas A&M. Now they add True Washington to the fold, who 2 seasons ago over at New Mexico was about a 40 or so percent three-point shooter, was very good for Miami this past year. 12 points, 4 boards, pair of assists, shot 35% from three as a 6'4", a little bit of a combo player. Xavier, I really think that year number 2 under the younger Pitino, Richard Pitino, it's going to be a big year for them. It's clear that Xavier is really looking to get serious right now. That is a great pickup for them, so I love what they're bringing to the table. Jordan Frinson, I know that he was very highly touted by a lot of, shall we say, schools. I know that Memphis was very much in on him. He has decided that he is going to be going to to Wichita State. When he was over at Chattanooga last season, he was really the main guy for them. 16.5 points, 4 assists, shots 45.5% from three-point range. A little bit undersized for a little bit of a higher level of basketball at 6 feet tall, so I don't know if he's going to be able to quite duplicate the 45.5% three-point shooting, but kept things very efficient with Chattanooga. Obviously, Chattanooga did not play the world's greatest defense. He's not really going to be a ball hawk or anything like that, but they're probably not going to need him to be. Over at Wichita State, it's not a team that generates a whole heck of a lot of turnovers, so I do think that this is going to be able to work out for them, and I think that this is going to work out as well, as Western Michigan is pretty much becoming UT Rio Grande Valley North. As for UT Rio Grande Valley's coach and Cale Fennell, he now lands a second of his guys. He brought over Julian Gomez already, but now he's going to be landing Jalen Washington as well. Washington was the main point guard for the team with about 4.2 assists per contest. He was able to throw in there about 10 points per game. Not the greatest three-point shooter at about 31%, but Gomez, who he's also bringing over, shot 43% from three. They played in the same backcourt with one another. You have to wonder if they're going to be able to land a few more of the other guys from UT Rio Grande Valley from a season ago, but we're seeing a lot of these coaches that they took a job, they are bringing over some of their own. I absolutely love to be able to see it, and I think that this is a great pickup for them. I think that this is one that is going to be working out quite swimmingly for them. I think that this one is going to work out as well as for Baylor when they've been at full force. They've been a really good three-point shooting just sort of system in general. Last season, they were a little bit down with that regard, and now they pick up one of the best three-point shooters in all of college basketball from a season ago. Brett Decker Jr., he was over at Liberty, shot 47.1% from three-point range, 17 points per game. Not a guy that's going to be too much of a creator. He's a one-trick pony. He's going to shoot it from three, and boy, oh boy, does he shoot it well from three-point range. So for Baylor, they're going to need to bring in a few other pieces. They're going to want to be a little bit better with regards to their defense as well. And Decker comes from a Liberty team that really didn't play a lot of defense last season, so there's going to need to be some, shall we say, parts around him. But that said, this is a good place for them to be able to start. I do like the pickup for them, and I do think that that's going to work out. Trayson Anderson, he was over at North Dakota State, and he's going to be heading on over to Butler. It's very clear that Ronald Norad is trying to put his imprint on this program right away. Brings in Jordan Ellerby, a nice double-figure scorer from Florida Gulf Coast. Edward Klofke, a 6'5" nice combo player from Ole Miss. Now he brings in Trayson Anderson, a guy who had 6'10" last season. He was solid over at North Dakota State. Was he like a dominant player? No, 10.5 points, 5.5 boards, but he needs a guy with a little bit of versatility. He shot 36% from three at 6'10". I don't know if he's one of these guys that's going to be averaging double figures for Butler or anything like that, but he's a nice guy that's going to be able to help them out in a wide variety of ways, give them versatility, so I do like that pickup. Colin Chandler, he was someone that came on over with Mark Pope over from BYU because he was originally going to be going to BYU. He decided that he was going to be going to Kentucky when he took the job, and this last season over at Kentucky, he had himself a nice year, 9.5 points, shot 41% from three, 2.5 assists per game, made some highlight reel dunks at 6'5" as well. He's not heading back home. He's going to be heading on over to BYU, a former top 50 recruit. We'll see what else BYU is going to be doing this offseason because we recall they paid a lot of money for Robert Wright last season. I do think that they're noticing the, shall we say, follies of the fact that they put their chips into the basket of a few different guys when Richie Saunders went down. That just caused everything to go down the toilet bowl for them last season, so they're probably going to want to spread the wealth a little bit, but that said, that's a nice pickup for them. Jake Wilkins, he's a former top 100 recruit. Last year was over at Georgia, saw a few minutes for them, was averaging about 5 points per game, wasn't an amazing three-point shooter, but was able to pop a few threes at 6'9". He's decided that he is going to be going on over to California. Now, Cal really needs some rebounding help because last year, that's where they were very weak, and they do lose Justin Pippen in the transfer portal. They're going to need to try to rebuild a little bit through that, but that said, this is a guy that has a nice little bit of an upside. We saw what Cal was able to do in terms of turning some of these guys into really nice three-point shooters, as Day-Day Ames was another one of them as well. And Day-Day Ames, by the way, he's going to be heading on over to Tennessee. That is a massive pickup for them, so we're going to give you two for the price of one here. For Ames, he is going to be on school number 4 in 4 seasons, but what he was able to do over at California this last year, 17 points per contest, shot 37.5% from three-point range, was a part of one of the more efficient offenses in all of college basketball. That's big, and now for Cal, they were a nice three-point shooting team last season. They're going to look to do a little bit of a better job on the glass, was well outside the top 225 in terms of rebound percentage. Bringing in Jake Wilkins, I think, is going to be able to help out with that quite a bit, so I do like the pickup that both of these schools were able to have over the last 24 or so hours. West Virginia, I forgot to ask our good friend Ryan McIntyre about this one. They do have a pickup that they've got. Boise State's Javon Buchanan is going to be coming on over, and I think that he is going to be fitting the Ross Hodge style very well. Boise State never really an up-tempo team, and for Buchanan, nice versatility at 6'7", 12.5 points, shot about 32% for three. Not amazing there, but a guy that'll defend his rear end off, is able to give you about 5 or so rebounds per game, was able to do a nice job on the offensive glass. Not necessarily like, shall we say, towering size or anything like that, but pretty ideal size for the system. I think that this is a really good pickup for them. So like what he's going to be able to bring to the table. Isaiah Johnson was one of the best sixth men in all of college basketball last season. He was playing over at Colorado, and now he heads on over to a former Big 12 school. He's going to be heading on over to Texas. Last year just absolutely tore it up. 38% three-point shooter, 17 points, 3 boards, 3 assists. Did his defense leave something to be desired? Oh, absolutely. But I mean, still, the guy closed out the season with a bang, 18-plus points in 4 out of the last 5 games for him as well. Guy that maybe is a little bit undersized at 6'1", but I think that he's going to fit the Sean Miller style really well. As we know, they're going to be losing Trayvon Mark and a few others from that backcourt, so they need to reload. They're looking for good three-point shooting. That's very, very good three-point shooting right there in Syracuse. That roster is starting to fill out under Jerry McNamara. He brought over 2 of his own, Gavin Doty and Tasman Goodrick from Siena. Now he brings in Gawari Duel, who's on school number 4 in 4 years. For Duel, he's back with his third different former Big East school, because he was at Providence, he was at Seton Hall, and now former Big East school Syracuse is now entered into the fold. He had McNeese last year, was able to be versatile for them. 8.5 points, 4.5 assists, 1.6 steals with about 3 boards per contest. Has never really been a great three-point shooter. Last year, shot 31.6% for 3, which was actually a career high for him. And Jerry McNamara's team over at Siena last year, they weren't a great three-point shooting team, but they just did a lot of the little things really, really well. I think that he's going to be able to fit the system relatively well. Again, you do want to see a few more, shall we say, shot makers around him, because right now this team is really lacking in terms of three-point shooting. I recognize that the McNamara system didn't really rely too much on that last season, but still probably want to see a little bit more of that. But it's a nice start here for Jerry McNamara, and it's very clear that it is going to be a case where there's going to be a lot of resources stuck into Syracuse basketball, both for this next season and moving forward. Houston, a pair of really nice pickups here. They pick up De'Don Thomas from LSU. Last year, he was limited over at LSU to 16 games, but 15.5 points, 6.5 assists. He was shooting only about 30% for 3 last season. In his 2 years at UNLV, was shooting more like 35.8% from 3. Guy with great versatility. You have to figure that Kingston Flemings is as good as gone. He's going to be a first-round NBA draft pick, and then they were really lucky to keep Miles Susan this past season. Is he going to be quite cut from the same cloth as those guards? And then you go back all the way to Marcus Sasser as well. Probably not, but I mean, still a really nice pickup for them, and you could probably use one more guard around him to really make this team as formidable as you want it to be, but that's a good starting spot for that backcourt. And then Delrecco Gillespie, he comes on over from Kent State. Not the biggest guy at 6'8", but it's not like Houston typically has 7-footers to start with. Houston was honestly down a little bit with their defensive rebounding from a season ago. With Gillespie in the fold, they will not be. At Kent State last year, 17.7 points, 11.3 rebounds, a steal, and a block per contest. What was lacking for Houston last year in terms of rebounding, it's not going to be this season. That is a really good pickup for them, so absolutely love what they did there. Taj Manning, he was over at Kansas State this last season. He has decided that he is going to be going on over to Iowa State. Now, I think that he's going to be a little bit more of an ancillary guy for this Iowa State team. Like last year, he was able to give the team 4 points, 5 rebounds per game, and Iowa State has really been able to improve their rebounding year in and year out under TJ Otzelberger. He's not a guy that's really going to light you up from 3. He's a career 23.5% three-point shooter, so he doesn't have quite that sort of versatility, but he was able to generate a few turnovers at 6'7" as well. That's big for Iowa State. They're always a top 5 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, so I do like that pickup for them. You did have a nice pickup for Kansas State as well. They lose Taj Manning, but they pick up Brandon Rechsteiner. He was over at Colorado State this past season, began his career at Virginia Tech. I remember at Virginia Tech 2 years ago, they pretty much had him running point just way too early. This past year at Colorado State, he was a little bit more in his happy zone, 12 points, really nice 40% three-point shooter in a system where defense was a little bit optional, and I don't think that Casey Alexander's team is going to be playing amazing defense, but they pick him up. Desirek Lindsey, who showed a little bit of versatility over at Oregon. They also get Brock Weiss, who he didn't do much at Murray State. Let's call it what it is, but I mean, some solid pickups here already for Kansas State. We'll see what else they're going to be able to build moving forward, but I do like that. Caleb Williams, no, not the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. He is on the move as well. Last season, he was over at Lafayette. He averaged about 9 points, 5 boards, shot 37.5% from 3. Jacksonville putting in some resources. They pick him up. Jacksonville really didn't have like any sort of a double-figure scorer last season. They were just very bereft of much of anything whatsoever. They weren't great on the glass. They weren't great with their offense. There was a lot left to be desired there. Bringing in a guy like this is going to be able to boost the backcourt, and I think that just boosts the just overall ability of this team in general, so I think that is going to be nice. Now, you did see Reed Descharme. He was over at Siena last year. He is going to be staying with Siena. He entered in the transfer portal initially, but it looks like he is going to be staying there. He is not going to be going on over with Jerry McNamara, and it's a very good thing for Siena because he began his career over at Xavier. I believe that McNamara actually recruited him to Xavier, just was unable to get out there on the floor overly much in his freshman year at Siena. It looked like he was going to be in for a big 2025-26 season, just wasn't able to get out there on the floor. He's a 6'7", a little bit of a combo player that's able to pop it from 3, so that'll be a nice building spot for them. Tomislav Bujan, he was a double-double machine for New Mexico this last season, 13.1 points, 7.3 boards. At 6'9", was able to pop a few threes, only shot about 31% from 3, but has that ability. He's going to be heading on over to Maryland. As we know, from Maryland, it was not a great season, number 1 for Buzz Williams, but you take a look at the track record that they've had in season number 2, season number 3, and beyond, and typically, it's been pretty rock solid, so I do think that this is going to be a relatively good pickup for them. And for Maryland, they were just absolutely awful on the glass this last season. That should be able to help out quite a bit. This should be able to help out the backcourt of South Carolina. They were one of the lesser three-point shooting teams in all of college basketball last season. They're picking up Corey Mincy, who was over at George Mason this last season. Over at George Mason, shot 40% from 3, actually closer to 39% from 3 after he was more of a 37% three-point shooter over at Presbyterian. Was able to take off with about 14 points, 3.5 boards, 3 assists, steal per contest. Really like this pickup for them. I do think that is going to be able to help them out moving forward, and I think that this is going to be a helper as well. Jeremiah Cherry, he was a starter over at UNLV for a few seasons. He played a very, very small sample size over at Sacramento State, got injured less than 5 games into the season, but in the games that he did play, he actually played 6 games, so correction there. 15.5 points, 8.2 boards, 2.3 blocks per contest. He was solid there, and you go back to his time over at UNLV 2 seasons ago, blocking out per contest. He's clearly able to guard in the Mountain West Conference, and now it's going to be the Pac-12 for San Diego State, but he's heading on over to San Diego State. That'll help them be able to restore a little bit of the roar down low. We shall see what is going to be happening with Magoon Gwath, whether or not he's going to be going pro, if he's going to be looking for some money out there in the transfer portal, what have you, but that really shores up the front court for them, so I do like that move on that front as well. And then this is another move that I do like. You've got Braden Young. He was over at Loyola Chicago, really didn't see the world's greatest amount of playing time, and man, things did not go great for them. He has decided that he is going to be heading on over to Northeastern after he was just glued to the bench. 6'9", little bit of a combo player that comes on over from the great state of Texas. He's going to be heading there. Now they're going to need him to play some defense, because for Northeastern, that's really where things have went down the toilet bowl. They just have not been a great defensive team over the last few seasons. Typically, they're a very good defensive team. You do have to wonder if the game is passing by just a legendary coach in general who did so much for Northeastern for many, many years in Bill Cohen, but I do think that that's a solid pickup for them, and I do think that that's going to help them out moving forward. And for McNeese, it's clear that they're still going to be spending a lot of money in college basketball, even though they've had a lot of turnover over the last few seasons. Larry Johnson, no, not the former running back of the Chiefs, he is back with the team. He entered into the transfer portal, a top 100 recruit that averaged last year 17.5 points, 5.5 boards. Now, he only shot about 24% from 3, but was a good defender as well, part of a team that was number 1 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. He's back with them, and now they pick up Jalen Dean Vines from Vanderbilt. Now, he was unable to really get out there on the floor. He was a pretty highly touted guy, former top 150, top 200 recruit, depending upon where you looked. He was only able to see action in about 10 games, but he's a native of the great state of Texas. He's going to be heading back down south as well, so that's a nice pickup for them, and we're going to be taking a look at all that we're getting here in the offseason right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. Every day that we get these transfer moves, we're going to be recapping them, what it all means for these teams, because it's right now a puzzle trying to put together what we're going to get for the 2026 26-27 season, and I'm going to do my best to put together that puzzle for you. So if you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GNet_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, coming at you guys every single day with picks and analysis on every single game, every single day once we get back into the season, here in the offseason, recapping all these moves, keeping you abreast of all the news that is happening, and having great guests on board, like Ryan McIntyre, who did such a great job joining me today. He does amazing work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. There's 365 days this year, so you're going to get 365 podcasts, and when it comes to more of the known elements, once we are able to get a little bit more clarity with the transfer portal as well, I'll have a specialized conference preview podcast for every one of these conferences as well. So I appreciate you guys tuning in today, and I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.